All right. Hopefully this is working. I have not been live in a while. I actually already talked about this topic before, but I figured we actually go over some more stuff as far as the mayor of Chicago calling the United Nations. Now, in my original video about the United Nations, I did not actually play the original raw footage of what the mayor had to say. I just played an interview with him on MSNBC to Reverend Al Sharpton. So I'm just going to wait for some people to join, and I figured that this would be kind of fun to do a live reaction, see the live interview, then we have a reaction from Tom Homan, from President Trump, and a couple of other things. So, yeah. I was advised to maybe go over this once again because it's so insane that a mayor actually called the United Nations. I don't know if this is the first time that's ever happened, but... And it is good to see all of you guys. If you guys want me to keep going live, just let me know. Maybe if you guys turn on the notifications, that would get everybody here in time. Hey, thank you for the $5 donation. Great work from Cairns, far north Queensland, Australia. Shout out Australia. How do you guys feel about all of this? And make sure you guys are please liking this live stream or the video. Yes, you finally caught me live. I am thinking about going live at night and sort of just doing like a recap maybe of the day, or like we go 2 days in, then we do a recap and talk about what happened, because there's so much going on. And I feel like I always don't get to talk about everything because I have to make the videos between 15 and 20 minutes. Longer than that, it turns into a documentary, and I'm not trying to do that. So yeah, we're actually going to dig into this, and yeah. Here we go. Let me know what you guys think, and let's try to get through this.
We are here because...
And by the way, again, in context, this is the mayor of Chicago appealing to the United Nations for human rights violations. Yeah. Typically, that's reserved for, like, you know, war-torn countries, but apparently Chicago is turning into a war-torn country. Here we go.
We are here because the federal government under the Trump administration has failed to meet even the most basic expectations of transparency and accountability before this council. And by refusing to submit its Universal Periodic Review report and declining to appear for its review, this administration seeks to evade scrutiny for its violations of human rights.
Okay, right off the bat, I just have to stop right there. I'm not going to keep stopping. This is not that long of a clip. But right off the bat, to say that the Trump administration is not transparent, even if you don't like the Trump administration, it is by far the most transparent campaign, presidential term in a while. That is how we're able to make so many videos about President Trump. That is how even the left-leaning media is able to criticize him 24/7. We know a lot more than we probably should know as far as even Operation Midway Blitz.
Just as it has sought to evade accountability for its actions in cities like mine. This refusal to engage in good faith with international mechanisms for accountability and oversight is a moral failure. In Chicago, we live with the consequences of that moral failure every day. Families torn apart by immigration raids that have targeted daycare teachers, rideshare drivers, and restaurant cooks.
So this right here is like the big thing that they are honing in on, is that daycare worker. And I don't know if you guys watched my video or you know about this story, is that the daycare worker is an illegal immigrant. So to even appeal to the United Nations that an illegal immigrant has been deported, again, I can't even believe he's saying what he's saying.
Honest, hardworking, law-abiding people who contribute to the soul of Chicago, who literally make our city run.
Okay, so that was actually posted by the Chicago mayor's press office. So that is the actual clip he decided to show the world, which was, I guess, going to be his strongest argument. Because typically as a press office or any sort of way to push a narrative out there, you do want to, you know, have that highlight. And that's what he chose to highlight. In fact, it looked like he talked on the Al Sharpton show, if that is a show, for a lot longer and gave more details. But Tom Homan had this to say. I thought you guys would find this funny. I did not get to play this in the original video, which is why I'm doing this live stream. And again, make sure you guys leave your comments, and we'll try to read those. Here's Tom Homan's reaction to calling the United Nations.
Mayor Brandon Johnson is asking the United Nations to intervene to stop your...
I mean, it sounds fake. When I first saw the news headline, I was like, there's no way this is real. To call the United Nations. And if you guys are unaware, I actually used to do geopolitics. So a lot of times I would have to look into the United Nations, see what policies they're pushing, see if they possibly go into like an African country. I used to cover a lot of Africa. So again, it's just so bizarre that a U.S. mayor is calling in the United Nations. It just is.
Operations. Here is what he said.
And yes, somebody... New Yorkston, did she try not to laugh? Yeah, listen to the anchor.
Mayor Brandon Johnson is asking the United Nations to intervene to stop your operations. Here is what he said before.
There's also somebody who's like, oh my gosh, in the background. I don't even know who that is.
And is asking the United
Listen to the background.
Nations to intervene to stop your operations. Here is what he said before the UN Human Rights Council. Listen to this.
The federal government's immigration enforcement has been marked by violence and an assault on the dignity of all Chicagoans. I call on this council to hold the federal government of the United States to the same standards of accountability you apply elsewhere in the world. No country should be above international law. I urge the Human Rights Council to consider additional measures of accountability, including a special session to examine the worsening human rights crisis in the United States.
Texas says, what's the UN going to do anyway? That's the big question. What are they going to do anyway? Again, it's more so just bad if you get labeled as a humanitarian disaster or a human rights violation. That's really what it is. But to your point, you really cannot enforce anything he's trying to say. It's more so just to have the clout to be like, look, Chicago is so bad that ICE, it's human rights violations. That's really what this is it's a narrative game. Somebody said, is that treasonous? I mean, you could even get into that territory. In fact, we will listen to what President Trump has to say here in a second. And again, make sure you guys are please liking the live stream so the other T-SPLY subscribers can see what's going on, because I typically don't go live.
Tom, this is just pure lunacy, but what is your reaction to all of that?
He just proved he's not that smart, right? I mean, asking the United Nations to interfere with ICE enforcing U.S. law, it's like asking an arsonist how to stop a fire. Because the UN, remember, the IOM, the part of the UN, helped fund the mass migration during the Biden administration 4 years, spending millions upon millions of dollars helping that migration, international migration, come to the United States.
So the UN would have to investigate itself or elements of itself. I don't know how that's going to work.
So, the United Nations is not going to tell President Trump what to do. President Trump was put in office on the promise of making this country safe again, on the promise of having the historic deportation operation. That's exactly what America is getting. Every criminal alien ICE and Border Patrol takes off the street makes this country safer. We have the most secure border in the history of the nation right now because of leadership of President Trump, the men and women of the Border Patrol, and because ICE, what ICE is doing in the interior every day, they've sent a message across the globe. Don't spend your life savings, cross the border illegally, think you're going to get away in the United States.
And let's also think about this. Imagine if the United Nations is like, okay, we're going to look into the policies of these deportations. Because, by the way, the United Nations, they actually do that. They have accused Australia of some issues because of an island they have where they send their deportations. And other countries, too, have been scrutinized as far as inhumane conditions. So this is not out of the realm of possibilities. The only problem is this. I'm almost positive the United States might be the only country in the world that will pay you $1,000 to deport from the United States. So it's going to be a very, very tough challenge to accuse or say the United States is a human rights violation country when they pay you to leave the country a healthy sum. I actually did the math. If you get paid that $1,000 and you live in like a North African country, that is like 16 months your wage. In South America, I think it's like 4 months of your wage. So it's a lot of money considering, okay?
That's what ICE is doing. People aren't spending their life savings, putting themselves in harm's way. Thousands of people aren't dying making that journey. Thousands of Americans aren't dying from fentanyl because of that secure border. But the actions of the interior, the ICE and Border Patrol has a lot to do why we have the most secure border in the history of this nation today.
New York Stan said, will they send me to anywhere I want to go? Possibly. A lot of people don't know this, and this would be a human rights violation. If the United States decided to send people to like a North Korea or to a country that's violent, that would technically be a human rights violation. But what even adds this to the crazy list is that I've never said that before, the crazy list. The United States actually has to make sure you're going somewhere where you're going to be safe. So I don't know how they're going to even justify human rights violations.
You're doing such a great...
I don't know if you guys knew that. What's up, Climatics? Good to see you. Climatics Raid. Yo, what's up, everybody? President Trump hardly entertained any of this. What's up, everybody? Shout out Climatics. Thank you for being here. Love you guys. And make sure you guys please like the live stream. Here's what Mr. Trump had to say. Short and sweet.
Your dear friend Brandon Johnson is calling on the United Nations to investigate what he calls the abusive immigration crackdowns in the city by your ICE officers and so forth. The UN in Chicago? What is your message to him?
Well, look, number one, he's got a 4% approval rating.
That's one thing about President Trump. He just goes straight for the throat. Doesn't even address the fact that we're talking about the UN. He just goes straight to, well, he has a 4% approval rating. This clip right here is actually the main reason why I even wanted to do this live stream. I just thought that that was such a good mic drop that we can end the live stream now. But he just is like, yeah, but he has a 4% approval rating, so whatever he says is not even legitimate.
You have people in Chicago, beautiful black women wearing a MAGA hat, red MAGA hat. Please come, Mr. Trump, President. They call me President. They call me Mr. They can call me whatever they want. Please come, President Trump. Please come to. They're begging us to come.
That's his response to the UN. Shout out and thank you everybody from Climatics TV. You guys are very good people.
Your dear friend.
And again, make sure to please like the live. If you haven't already, make sure to please subscribe. And let's go here. Oh, speaking of human rights, so this is one way that I think they're trying to identify the human rights stuff. Former mayor of Chicago. Have you guys seen this yet? This is the former mayor of Chicago talking about data gathering. And then we'll get to the Al Sharpton interview. In my personal opinion, this actually can cross the line.
We start the process of unmasking the agents. Even though they're wearing masks, every single one of them has a towel.
You say unmasking, they're going to say you're going to dox them, and that's why threats against them are up.
They are on public property, out in the open. We have an absolute right under our Constitution to be able to document what's happening. Every single one of those agents, height, weight, hair color, they wear their vests in a particular way.
So here you have Chicago saying that ICE is a bunch of human rights violators. Now you have the former mayor of Chicago saying, so here's what we're going to do. We're going to find out who every single one of those people are, and then we're going to put them in a database. We're going to find out their height and weight, and we're going to organize. We're going to figure out exactly who they are. So you guys tell me, which one sounds more like a human rights violation? Going after people who are doing their constitutional duty? I don't know. You tell me.
They're wearing insignias, even the masks that they wear, the shoes that they wear, the cars that they're driving. We have a right to compile that information and put together a profile of each of these agents that's alleged to have committed crime. This is not about doxing them. This is not about putting them in danger, and I'm sure we're going to hear that. But as residents of this city in the metropolitan area, we have a right to know who's doing what, and supposedly in our name, but we believe that they are committing crimes and it needs to be investigated, and then let a grand jury, let the prosecutor make a determination.
Are you saying you're going to compile this information and then take legal action, civil action?
Well, what we're going to do is we're going to compile the information, and hopefully it's going to compel local law enforcement, the state's attorney, and others to do their job.
I don't know if you guys know a thing or two about history, but one thing that happens in world history when you have something known as like a regime change, or we can even look at the country of Iraq. When you start to compile data and you start to create these lists of gathering the names, we have actually seen the mass taking out of political opponents. So Again, I used to actually be way more into geopolitics before politics, and to me, that's what this is starting to sound like. So there's a little bit of irony that the territory of Chicago is trying to claim that there is a human rights violation, when this literally sounds verbatim, like we've seen with regime changes, creating these lists and then using it against political opponents to eliminate their opponents. So,
jobs. And
yeah. Now here's the famous interview, the Al Sharpton interview. This is where Al Sharpton really gets into the details of what the mayor of Chicago had to say. Yeah, that's right. We were told to wear masks. And hit that like button, please. Thank you so much. I never go live. I just decided, why not? Let's just try it. All right, so this is a beautiful, beautiful interview.
Which has become ground zero for the Trump administration's war on America's cities. Joining me now is...
And Al Sharpton off the bat calling this a war on American cities. It's a war. Okay.
Chicago Mayor Brandon Johnson, a Democrat. I want to ask you, Mr. Mayor, about the impact of the shutdown on your city, but I must start with the escalating tension.
Which, by the way, as I make this live stream or do this live stream, the government is open, right? They just voted to open it. So keep that in mind.
In your city over the president's immigrant purge. Homeland Security says an unidentified man fired shots from his car at federal agents yesterday, and they clashed with residents protesting immigration enforcement actions in Chicago's Little Village neighborhood. The man drove off and remains at large, according to the DHS. No one was...
Is this a real show? Does Al Sharpton actually have a show every single day? I've never actually watched a full interview.
Struck by...
Does he not know what the details of this entire case was? There was a caravan following Homeland Security agents. It got so bad that the local police had to actually step in, and then shots were fired. So it's there's no context here at all.
Gunfire, according to Chicago police who responded to the incident. What's your reaction, Mayor Johnson?
Yeah, well, good afternoon, Reverend Sharpton. Thanks for having us back again. Look, I unequivocally condemn, any act or acts of violence against law enforcement or otherwise. The challenge that we have here in this moment is that on multiple occasions, judges have found our ICE agents and Border Patrol and federal agents, they have found their claims to be unsubstantiated.
Okay, so I just want to point out, we have federal agents who literally had shots fired at them, and the mayor talked about it for 0.2 seconds, and now he's talking about how judges have said federal agents are the issue. I hope you guys are realizing this. In fact, I talked about this, I think 3 or 4 videos ago, and we ran it through AI, his exact statements, and even AI, ChatGPT was 90% of his statement was anti-ICE, and the rest was kind of supporting law enforcement.
In fact, they lack a great deal of credibility here. What we're seeing on the ground here in Chicago, as you described it, a war against the city of Chicago and American cities across the country by the Trump administration. Our city is working hard to ensure that we protect the dignity of everyone's humanity, but just as important, we're also working to defend our democracy.
Now, you've asked the United Nations Human
Here we go. This is the part right here.
Rights Council to scrutinize ICE's actions in your city, requesting that the council hold a special session on what you've called a worsening human rights crisis in the U.S. under President Trump.
I advise you guys, if you have any free time, go look into what actual human rights violations really look like throughout the world. I mean, it is some disgusting stuff. It doesn't necessarily have to be the physicality of things like the government is coming after you and knocking on your door and taking you out. It doesn't even have to be that. We're even talking about the suppression of social media. We saw that in Bangladesh. So when it comes to human rights violation, we're talking about really, really bad stuff. So I almost think it's a little insulting that you have the mayor of Chicago elevating the status of what ICE is doing to some of the atrocities of the world.
The request followed a federal judge issuing an injunction last week that limits ICE's use of force in Chicago under Border Patrol Commander Greg Bovino. What do you hope to accomplish by bringing the world's attention to what's happening in your city, Mr. Mayor?
Well, look, the city of Chicago has longed for universal human rights to be applied locally. And, you know, either our human rights are universal or they're meaningless. What we have seen is a great deal of terror that has been executed across our city. It has had a profound impact on our day-to-day. I mean, we literally had a preschool teacher ripped out of...
The preschool teacher thing, that's like a really big thing they're clinging on to for the human rights violation, supposed human rights violation. And I appreciate it, Cly. I hope you guys do like the new background. It's extra green, and that is uranium glass. That's why it's green in here. And so probably not the safest thing to have uranium around, but or radiation.
Out of her workplace and detained. We've seen individuals with documents and as well as those without documents.
I'm not sure how he got elected. I am not an expert in his election process, how he was able to win, but it is a little shocking that he has a 5% approval rating, but yeah.
Documents detained by these Border Patrol and these ICE agents, indiscriminate the releasing of tear gas against the people in our city. You know, we've had Black Hawk helicopters swarm over the apartments and homes of families on the south side of Chicago, where you've seen black families put in one van and detained, and ostensibly undocumented families placed in another van, while at the same time the president is withholding food from the people in this city. I spoke with a seniors on Friday where they're barely receiving $10 to $12 on their SNAP cards.
Now, the United Nations is going to ask the one question that I talked about in the video originally. They're going to be like, okay, this all sounds really bad, but we noticed there's like a policy you guys have. It's called like sanctuary policy. What exactly does sanctuary policy means? Because, you know, that sounds like a good thing as a sanctuary policy. Are you creating like a safe haven? Is this a sanctuary? Well, no, sanctuary policy, what that does is it actually creates a divide, and our local police doesn't work with federal agents. So federal agents are forced to do a lot more work because we're not helping them. Could you imagine the United Nations staring at the mayor and looking at these policies and having to say that there's a human rights violation in Chicago when the local police are not even working with federal agents? I don't even think that's a policy anywhere in the world. I am almost positive there is not a concept of sanctuary policies. You have jurisdictions, like, hey, this is my part of the country, that's yours. But to have a sanctuary policy, you would think that, hey, let's all work together to make sure we're safe. Yeah, and to Texas's point, and then imagine the United Nations is like, okay, so you guys have prisons and you're not releasing the names of people who are like really bad people to the federal government. It's crazy. It is crazy. Thank you for the $20, Norman. I appreciate it. Keep up the good work, Marcus. Thank you. That is my real name. I'm surprised anyone knows what my real name is. Yeah, so the United Nations looking into these policies, and another point I made in my previous video, it's called the United Nations. So this idea of a sanctuary city creating division, I don't know how that's going to fly with the United Nations.
And it's making it almost impossible for them to survive. And so whether it's the unconstitutional acts that are being carried out by the Trump administration.
No, I think it's in my About Me for YouTube. Doesn't my About Me say, hi, my name is Marcus?
Or the fact that food and medicine has been cut off.
You must have done a lot of research to find my name. But I do appreciate the donation. Thank you.
The situation has worsened, and we're calling for the Human Rights Council to come to Chicago to see firsthand what our people are experiencing right now.
Let's switch gears to the shutdown. We're watching the Senate to see if there's...
Okay, we can go back to that. I talked about this today. I thought this was interesting. Hey, thank you for the $5, Eric. They call it the Windy City because there's politicians who blow smoke up your peaches. Well, speaking of blowing smoke, this is the governor, I think you guys know that, of Illinois. This is what he had to say. And thank you for becoming a T-SPLY member. I appreciate that. I want to be Doxer. Here's what he had to say about Chief Bovino. Again, keeping with this trend of terrorizing.
The question was about Greg Bovino and CBP possibly leaving Chicago. I read the same thing. You know, they don't communicate directly with us and never have. All I can say is that, you know, whether it was the loss in the elections a week ago that's led to Donald Trump deciding to...
Thank you, Lord Croc, for becoming a member.
...pull CBP out, or the fact that Greg Bovino is a snowflake on a day when you can see some snowflakes. Whatever it is, the people of Chicago have deserved better than having CBP and Greg Bovino in this city. But I would not say that we're now going to be free of these terrorized neighborhoods, because ICE and CBP probably will still be here, though they will have fewer people. And we'll have to continue to protect our neighbors and our friends and our families. And I will work very hard, continue to do that, to keep people safe.
And you even have the governor who's talking like we're in a war zone, we're in a conflict, we have to keep everyone safe. Again, imagine the United Nations looking into this, and they're like, you guys realize these are your policies you voted for as a country. Like, there are, first off, we have a mayor who's requesting our help, and it looks like you have a 4% approval rating. And as the governor of Illinois, doesn't he, what hotel does he own? Can you guys remind me what hotel he owns? It's not the Hyatt. Is it the Marriott? No, not the Marriott. I am almost positive he owns a chain of hotels where ICE agents have been staying at. Like, I'm almost positive. The Hyatt? Hold on. I am almost positive. Yeah, it is. How does this make any sense? All right, so we have human rights violations. How does that make any sense? Imagine you are tasked with, I'm going to look into what's going on in Chicago, and then we're like, okay, well, where are these ICE agents staying? And they're staying at the hotels that this guy owns. Does that make any sense? That's why you got to do your research. In fact, there are a good amount of protesters that I see on TikTok who get super annoyed at this, by the way. If you ever want a good argument against the governor of Illinois, it's this one right here. I really try not to pull it out too much, but this right here, because a lot of protesters don't like this either, but this one right here is a pretty damning case for the governor of Illinois. Yeah, so that's a good one right there. Let's go through this.
Do you have any other attractions that you think Greg Bovini should visit?
Greg Bovini? What the heck?
While he's in town, while they're doing photo ops at the Bean, you know, Indiana.
Yeah, I mean, look,
the airport,
right?
The other airport.
Right.
What do you think?
You know, look, he just needs to go away. You know, every year there's a list that I put together of people who should just go away. He's in the running to be at the top of the list. I mean, because here's someone who is, he's provoked terror on people.
Again, the terror. Keeping up with that theme of terror. Homeland Security is causing terror in Chicago.
And, you know, I've seen a lot of bad behavior from human beings over the course of my study of just history. Even when he was on his way into federal court, you know, he paraded down the street and saluted individuals. And then they go on social media and put hip hop music to their terror in black and brown.
Okay, that part is true. If I was ever going to give something to the mayor of Chicago, this might be an unpopular opinion. Maybe I'm too old school. I'm not the biggest fan of when they do that. I understand why they do that. It's like mental warfare on the internet. The main reason why I get annoyed as to why they add music to their clips is because we can't play it on YouTube because of copyright. So I will give it to the mayor. That part can be a little annoying because I can't show you guys the clips. And thank you, Jim Brown, for becoming a member. Thank you guys so much. But that part is true. They do add music. I'll give them that.
Brown communities.
Do you guys like the music? Leave your comments if you guys like the music.
That's not even a dog whistle anymore. That's some real racist, jacked up stuff that he is engaged in. And the fact that we're putting black men in chokeholds, ripping black children out in the middle of the night, zip tying them, putting families who are documented or ostensibly undocumented into the back of vans. You know, I mean, you know, that's terror. That's not who we should be as a country. And it's unfortunate because you have a president who is such a brittle man. And
someone said there's a lot of hip hop and rappers that support Trump. I'm willing to bet it's a lot more than we would believe, for sure. Texas says, I love the memes from the admin. Yeah, again, it's a new, like I said, I'm kind of old school in that sense, but it is what it is. It's mental warfare. That's what it is.
It's unfortunate because now you have these men who are weak and insecure are using a uniform to administer terror. Like, that's what we fight against in other nations. That's why I called for the United Nations Human Rights Council to come and investigate the fact that people are going hungry and families are being ripped apart. And we have to have a universal standard for human rights. Otherwise, they're meaningless.
I want to show you guys something as far as this mental warfare. Does anybody here follow Chief Bovino on X or Twitter? Hold on, let me pull you guys up. Check this out. All right, so Mr. Bovino, apparently this is his page. Hold on. Okay, so he's active, like really active. When you go to his replies, this dude replies to everyone. Someone said Musk banned me. How'd you get banned? Big winning. Massive win, so proud of agents. Didn't they prove in court you are an evil little gnome who lied about getting pelted with rocks because you get a chubby tear gassing Americans? Like, who would respond to that? Chief Bovino just says no. So yeah, when it comes to the memes and the music, it's like you would expect Chief Bovino's out there like mission planning. Obviously, I don't think it's actually, if it is Chief Bovino, which I don't think it is, it's got to be somebody who works with Chief Bovino, but he responds to everything. That dog is the beans. Like, okay, this right here is insane. I'm sorry. What is the American people? Oh, sorry. We is the American people. We're going to dig into the records of all your agents when we're in the majority. Hopefully, real patriots will never let any agents have a moment of peace in public. You know this because you cover your faces. Then he just goes 17 followers. Like, who does that? You know what I mean? So it is a different day and age. But that, if you guys don't follow Chief Bovino, yeah, he responds to, like, literally responds to everything and then trolls back. Crazy stuff.
Thank you.
My pleasure. I'll put you down for one of the airports then after the deal is made in Washington. And
look, we have worked exceptionally hard to restore the trust between law enforcement and the community. I am absolutely concerned that what Border Patrol, under the direction of Bovino, under the direction of of his king, President Trump, that has ensued the great deal of chaos that he is trying to promulgate throughout the entire country. Yes, I'm concerned about that. And that's why we're going to continue to review all of these actions. But what I can say is this president has unleashed Bovino to unleash tear gas on police officers and babies.
Wow.
And then they have the temerity to take a picture in front of one of our public assets. There are horrific pictures that exist within America and American society.
Good night, Jessica.
Graphic ones, from lynchings to black children being prevented from entering into a public institution. What Bovino and the Border Patrol are executing right now have the same grotesque proclivity as those who have worked incredibly hard to dehumanize historically people who have been placed in the margins. It's sick.
Okay, so now you know what it's like to be a YouTube creator. You have to go through all of this footage, and then you have to sit here and try to figure out what the heck is going on. So that was that whole spiel about Chief Bovino.
Any progress tonight, but the government.
Yeah, I know. Though, again, if you didn't know anything about anything, if you are just sitting here listening and you're just trying to do a proper non-biased investigation based off of what he's saying, you would think that if you walk through the streets of Chicago, it is going to end very bad for you. Okay? Meanwhile, not that I ever want to go to Chicago. No disrespect. It's a great city. I don't like the pizza. But I guarantee I can probably walk through Chicago and there's like a 99.2% chance I will be okay if I just walk right through. And I wear a helmet. But you know what I mean. The way that he's explaining it, he makes it sound like we're in a war-torn country.
Government closure has created disruptions that appear to be worsening by the
Okay, I'm going to drop that down to 75%, but that's still really high.
day at Chicago's Midway and O'Hare airports. And yesterday at O'Hare, one of the...
Okay, I'm going back down to 52%, but that is still high considering. 52% is as low as I'll go, but that's still pretty good.
Busiest airports in the world. Traffic was delayed by a nearly 2-hour ground stop due to lack of air traffic control staff. Your city's getting hit right now by its first big winter storm of the season. And according to the flight tracking site, FlightAware,
I apologize for having to watch this, but again, I think it's rather crucial we get the full context of what we're seeing here.
O'Hare has seen more than 150 flights canceled in the last 24 hours. Man. How is this impacting Chicago beyond its airports, Mayor?
Yeah, look, this is another clear example of how the Trump administration has waged war against working people, poor people. And as you indicated, we had the busiest summer in our city's history at our airports, particularly O'Hare, over 24.
Okay, does the mayor really have a 4% approval rating? Can we, let's get a fact checked on this right now. I apologize that we're even watching this. The viewership is just plummeting. As when Al Sharpton starts talking, I'm losing 10 viewers a second. No disrespect, but like from a broadcaster standpoint, I mean, come on, guys. Does he really have a 4% approval rating? Let's fact check this real quick. Okay, this is from the Chicago Sun-Times. Mayor Johnson's job approval up slightly, but his tax choices are unpopular. Oh yeah, didn't he just get mad about taxes? %31 job approval rating. Up from 26% last summer. Okay, so maybe 4% is not exactly accurate, but I still think whether it's 31%, 26%, or 4%. That's not good. That is not good. I want to also, yeah, 31% is really bad. And by the way, I do like pizza. I just don't like deep dish pizza. No disrespect.
Officials would not confirm these reports that
Day of mid-news, the Operation Midway Blitz is set to wind down dramatically.
Homeland Security officials would not confirm these reports that controversial leader Commander Gregory Bavino is...
So the local news decided to report that Operation Midway Blitz was going to be winding down. This is something else that I found today. Turns out it's actually the exact opposite, but I just want to show you guys this is what the local news is reporting.
To leave. Political reporter Paris Schutz has the latest on this story. Paris?
I don't know
Sylvia and Terrence,
where they got their news from.
These federal DHS officials say the aggressive deportation efforts will still go on, but they might be much less flamboyant amid multiple reports that the Trump administration plans to scale back this operation and relocate that controversial Customs and Border Protection Commander Gregory Bavino somewhere else. Now, Governor Pritzker today held a Veterans Day memorial.
He's going to Charlotte. Did you guys see that in the news? I'll be doing a video on that tomorrow. Well, I guess I already did today, but I'll be talking about it more tomorrow. Apparently, there's going to be a federal task force in Charlotte, North Carolina.
Event in Little Village, ground zero for recent immigration raids. And here's what he had to say.
Whether it was the loss in the elections a week ago that's led to Donald Trump deciding to...
Those more spectacle situations, those more flamboyant actions have been led by Commander Bavino, who reportedly will leave, although when asked about it on Fox News, DHS spokesperson Tricia McLaughlin would not confirm or deny. She simply said that Operation Midway Blitz will go on.
Yeah.
Now, meanwhile, a tense exchange after Governor Pritzker's press conference in Little Village today. 25th Ward Alderman Byron Sigcho Lopez gets in Governor Pritzker's face, takes him to task for publicly opposing Mayor Johnson's employee head tax proposal.
Yep, here it is.
Some of that exchange.
I want to talk about what we need to do to help our community.
What we need is a progressive income tax, a graduate income tax in the state.
And when is it going to happen? Yes.
Yeah,
or the surcharge.
You know that I've worked very hard to get that passed when I first got elected.
Yes, and listen, and you got one more second. No. One more second. No.
Okay. Did you guys see that part of the news? And speaking of Little Village, Mayor Johnson did not bring this part up. Mayor Johnson did not bring up the part where the local police were getting involved and actually having to stop some Chicago residents from getting out of hand. That's not ICE or Homeland Security. That is the local police because there was a convoy of people who were surrounding Border Patrol agents.
Get back.
Now, there was a news report today talking about how there was possible collusion. They're using the word collusion with the local police and federal agents. If this is collusion, then I think we're going to have a problem in Chicago because as a police officer, they're literally just trying to do their job. Yeah, you don't see that too often, the police actually working with federal agents. Okay. Somebody said Deportland. I would hate to be a police officer there. Yeah, honestly, being a police officer in a sanctuary jurisdiction has to be one of the toughest jobs in human history, by far. Somebody said, look how worn down his baton is. No, for real. That baton has been used before. I assume ICE knows their detainees are about to be released. Oh, somebody just gave a little spoiler alert. Hey, while we're here, we might as well just watch it, but I am going to do a more detailed video about it tomorrow, so if you guys want to subscribe, make sure to please subscribe. Let me pull this up real quick. Did you guys hear the news that detainees are going to be released in Chicago? Pull that up for you guys. Hold on. Give me 1 second.
Judge Jeffrey Cummings.
All right. But tomorrow I'm going to go into more detail. But let's just go ahead and look at the news report since we're here. Again, pretty big news. Which I totally see this backfiring because this just means the Trump administration will send in more agents, in my opinion.
Jeffrey Cummings ordering 13 people to be released by Friday at noon after he determined they were arrested in violation of a consent decree in Illinois with the Department of Homeland Security over warrantless arrests. Another 615 people were ordered released into alternatives to detention like electronic monitoring or paying a bond by next Friday, the 21st.
Yeah. And by the way, I do want to put it out there. It's not necessarily uncommon for an illegal immigrant to be released because they still can be deported. But we're talking about the judicial process of figuring out where you're going to be sent. For example, Kilmar Obrego Garcia, he was released by a judge, but then ICE picked him up immediately, which is what I think is going to happen here personally. So, yeah.
Judge Cummings saying those 615 people should not be in custody while government and immigration attorneys and the judge determine if they were arrested in violation of the consent decree.
This will allow a lot of people to return to their communities because they never should have been arrested in the first place.
All of the arrestees identified for release do not have mandatory detention orders and have been determined not to pose any significant risk to the community.
And this is what I'm talking about. They can still be deported, but they're not a significant risk, and that's what happened with Kilmar Obrego Garcia. Kilmar Obrego Garcia does not technically have a criminal history, even though if you guys have not seen the footage, you should go look it up. There is footage of him possibly allegedly involved with human trafficking. You have a court order where there was a conflict with his wife, but there's nothing on a piece of paper that says he has a criminal history, which is what you're pretty much seeing here.
According to attorneys, the government has between now and this Friday to oppose or appeal the judge's ruling.
The judge also acknowledged that if the Customs and Border Patrol and ICE had merely followed federal law and our consent decree, there would be nothing for him to order. There would be nothing for him to interpret. But his view of our agreement is that folks who do not have criminal histories or are of risk of danger to the community, who were unlawfully arrested without probable cause, should be released.
And again, guys, I will go into a lot of detail tomorrow. I'm just sort of giving you guys a little bit here so you can see what's going on.
As the I-Team has previously reported, the court action today stems from violations of a 2022 consent decree requiring immigration arrests without a warrant to meet two criteria. Is there probable cause to believe someone is in the U.S. illegally, and are they also a flight risk? Attorneys argue both of those conditions have been routinely flouted, and they believe the list of those ruled unlawfully arrested is expected to grow.
I think it will show that this whole operation, for the last 2 months, the terrorizing...
Again, we're leaving out a very crucial part of this entire story, which is what happened with Kilmar Obrego Garcia. Even if the Trump administration has been wrong about every single thing, they're totally wrong, they lost their court case, they lose everything, he's still an illegal immigrant and can be deported, and will be deported. Which is what's pretty much happening here. You have these little caveats where these lawyers are clinging on to with technicalities. But in my personal opinion, you're almost selling a fake dream here because at the end of the day, they could still be deported. But I totally understand. I understand the argument that they're trying to say. And that is a debate as far as if you guys haven't looked into what is probable cause. Some people question, does the probable cause go way too far into a certain direction of like possibly racism or whatever? But that's what they're clinging on to.
Of our neighborhoods, the brutalizing of people here, has all been unlawful. That's what it's going to show. It's going to show that all of this, all of the tactics of Mr. Bovino, all of the tactics of ICE have been unlawful in the vast, vast majority of arrests.
And the judge also ordered ICE to stay deportation proceedings for people pending release. The Department of Homeland Security said in a statement, the order today is, quote, putting the lives of Americans at risk. The judge also ordering the Department of Justice to review all remaining arrests until today's date that fall under the same category of potential violations and share that by next week, meaning
I mean, what it sounds like is they don't like the way they were arrested and they don't like the process of how it was going down. And honestly, again, I haven't done enough research. I'm going to do this after the fact. What it sounds like is they're just sort of piling on top of what another judge said about Mr. Bovino, that he had lied in court or they're not using proper protocols. So that's what this looks like as well. Yeah. Okay, and that's what I'm going to do right now. I'm going to actually do some research into this, and I'm going to make a longer video tomorrow. So I really do appreciate you guys being here. I like hardly ever go live. Maybe I'll start to go live at night and we can do like these recaps. You guys can let me know if you want to do that. But thank you guys so much. Again, make sure to please leave your comments. Make sure to like the video, and thank you again. Hope you guys enjoy.